and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, another week of just fucked up, horrible shit. As per usual. One interesting highlight has been the fact that Trump has been convicted on all 34 counts in New York. And you can tell just how little that's actually worth by the fact that basically that much of the political class is just has been following that and just eating the popcorn very smugly, just gloating over it. That just tells you this is not an end to impunity. This is one guy they don't like getting it for a sufficiently esoteric offense that it doesn't set any kind of precedent. And I still have to say, I've always thought the idea that he was the one paying the hush money was kind of backwards because, like, would you really? You fuck Donald Trump. Surely you're the one paying the hush money. You don't want that getting out. Who the fuck wants to have it get out that they fucked Donald Trump? It's like, no, it's slimy motherfucker. No way. And meanwhile, John Kirby, whose name is a disgrace to everybody's favorite anthropomorphized ball of yarn, was offended by the question that basically everybody is asking, which is just how many fucking people does the US have to kill in Gaza before they'll be satisfied? He was offended by the question. Because you see, they're doing this thing where they claim to have red lines, and the red lines always have some qualifier, some wiggle word, and this time they used an old one. Some people will remember at the very beginning of the U.S. war against Iraq, the U.S. announced the end of major combat operations. This is like in the very first year of that war. And Major did a lot of work in that sentence. Because, for obvious reasons, because combat operations sure as hell weren't over. And so when they were looking for a fake red line, a nice little red lie to use about Rafah, they said, okay, we will not accept a major ground operation in Rafah. Well, what the hell is that? Everything is minor compared to some hypothetical worse version. So it's totally meaningless. So, yeah, that's been this past week. Let's see what we've got to look at. Let's see. Maybe start out. Destiny gives his argument against free healthcare. I'm sure that's going to be a... Let's check that shit out. A guy who has read maybe 3 books in his life and actually seems to make it a point of honor to be just totally Dunning-Krugered out. He's Dunning-Kruger pilled about anything he argues.
Healthcare, people don't want to ask important questions. So,
God, his voice is so fucking annoying too. If people don't want to ask important questions.
like, my understanding is, given absolute freedom to healthcare at all points of contact, like, patients will overconsume.
Yeah, this is a standard right-wing bullshit argument. It's based on the idea that supposedly everybody just is dying to go to the doctor. Because that's like what everyone wants to do. They want to hang out in the doctor's office, hang out with their GP, get stuff stuck into them. Isn't that what everybody wants to do all the time? This is the idea. Meanwhile, the reality is that people, men in particular, actually seriously are underexposed to healthcare. Men in particular just will part of the lower life expectancy of single men is precisely that they will leave it until it is an absolute crisis before they set foot in a doctor's surgery. And they're more likely to access healthcare in a timely manner when they're married, because there's somebody saying, hey, wait a second, that thing's been growing on you for a very long time. Maybe somebody ought to check it out. It does not look like a good thing to have growing on you. And they say, fuck it, I guess I'll go check. I mean, the reality is this idea that, this overconsumption idea is just nonsense.
Meaning they'll do too many checkups that are unnecessary. They'll go when they don't need to, and they waste resources for hospitals. So that's like a bad thing that I think has been seen to happen.
And no, it has actually not been seen to happen. It has been hypothesized to happen by people who are in the payroll of insurance companies.
I think it's either in the economics or the bad economics subreddit. There's a big study. I want to say that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. I could be wrong though. That looked at that.
Yeah, you are wrong, actually, because there's no evidence that there is this overconsumption thing.
I think that financial stuff shouldn't be a barrier to healthcare. I mean, obviously. And
Well, the only way for financial stuff to not be a barrier to healthcare is if it is free at the point of use. The minute you are charged for it, financial stuff is a barrier to it.
then preventative stuff is a good economic investment, and it's a good health investment. So that's important as well. One thing that I've had questions about is sometimes I wonder if we're
You don't have to wonder about this shit. It has been extensively studied, and it isn't like we don't have examples of healthcare being free at the point of use. Like, there are entire countries, like normal countries, where healthcare is free at the point of use for everybody, and we can look at how that works. Like, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, he speculates because he can't be bothered to look into it.
trying to do too much, or if we or if maybe it's not possible. I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe it's not possible. Maybe maybe it is physically impossible for healthcare to be free at the point of use. Except in those fantasy countries, like kind of most industrialized countries.
Because I hear problems with healthcare around the world with everybody. Like, I wonder if we just don't have enough people, like actual physical people to like work in healthcare. Is that what you think?
Well, that is, first of all, not always the case, and second of all, that's something that can be dealt with. Like, right now, if you want a medical degree, you're going to go into a shitload of debt. The problem, as long as education is expensive, that's going to mean that, particularly those fields where you have to get a lot of education before you're actually able to be qualified, are going to be harder to place people in. But I mean, they always come up with these sorts of nonsense arguments. They'll like point out a problem that is easily dealt with, that in fact has been dealt with in other places, and then say, "Oh well, this is unsurmountable."
Thanks for the 5 subs. Listening to, I'm leaning on my Swedish together, like listening to Melina trying to set stuff up in Sweden. My God. Some stuff was really nice. If you wanted to get an STD test, you could schedule that and like boom, 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 and it's free. And it's like, oh, sick, that's awesome. But for like actually scheduling a real doctor appointment, oh my God, like the calling, and you have to wait for their call at the precise moment. If you miss it, you're completely
Yeah, I mean, which is, again, an example. First of all, Sweden is not a great model. Sweden was one of the countries that decided, along with the US and Britain, were the main countries who did this, to just fuck their entire population sideways with COVID and do absolutely nothing to protect them, and it has been a fucking disaster for them. But yeah, if you like, I mean, and I'm sure he's gonna point out that the NHS at this point is a disaster, but there's a reason the NHS is a disaster, and it's because it's being defunded so that U.S. insurance companies can move in and buy it up. Like, that's not an argument against having a public health system. It's an argument against actually defunding a public health system and then expecting it to function.
and then like the scheduling for how many months or years out that it could be. And these are common complaints I hear from people across Europe, Canadian friends. It could be kind of annoying. So yeah, I'm not sure 100%. There's also like in the United States, it's hard in the US because so much of our stuff is obscured from what the actual cost is.
What the fuck do you mean by that? obscured from what the actual cost is. Like, is he talking about the fact that hospitals and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies and all of them put shitloads of markup on everything so they can maximize profits because they're allowed to do that? Is that what he's talking about?
Like college is a really good example of that. When people in the U.S. talk about like college, they go like, "Oh my God." People will say like, "Oh my God, if you want to go to the University of Florida, you're spending at least like $30,000 a year. This is
Yeah, that's if you're rich enough to pay cash, though. In reality, you're paying way more than that.
horrible. It's and blah blah blah." But it's like, well,
Yeah, it is horrible. Like, nobody can afford that.
but it's more complicated than that. Tons of people get student aid. There's lots of grants. You
Yeah, and you still end up, like, that student aid is largely in the form of debt that will last your fucking lifetime.
You've got federal programs, you've got state programs, you've got local programs.
Yeah, exactly. You know what's less complicated than that? If you just fully publicly fund the higher education, and so people don't have to pay any tuition, then it becomes considerably less complicated. It's complicated. The whole reason it's complicated is because the entire higher education system in the U.S. is heavily leaning on insolvent 18-year-olds taking on unsustainable debt burdens in order to fund itself. And the only way to make that work, the only way that that financing model can function, is if you have this ridiculous patchwork of debt and some grants, and it's all heavily means tested and all this bullshit. Yeah. But I mean, but the point is, and in the end, because of all the debt you have to take on to be able to afford it, you will end up paying probably 2 or 3 times what the actual, nominal cost is.
scholarships, you've got like so many different things that make this price way different. And healthcare is similar. Like people look at U.S. healthcare and they go, "How the can anybody afford this?" Well,
And the reality is a lot of people can't. I mean, there's like 70,000 people a year. This is pre-COVID, I should note. The average was 70,000 people a year who died either because they had no health coverage or because their health insurance company wouldn't pay to save their lives.
because a lot of people have insurance through like their job, and a lot of people have private insurance through their companies. A lot of people.
Yeah, and the thing is that insurance doesn't cover shit. Like, I mean, my insurance covers like literally everything except actual healthcare. All they do is fucking take my money. I have never had a single benefit from my insurance. None of the things I need do I ever get reimbursed for. And the point is, there's no reason all these insurance companies are profiting massively off of denying people care.
People have Medicare, Medicaid, and a lot of so like it's hard figuring out what the actual cost is at the end of the day for a lot of stuff.
It actually is not hard. People have already done it. You can just look it up. And the thing is, when you look it up, what you find is that the per capita spend on healthcare in the U.S. is way higher than any other comparable country. And the outcomes are considerably worse. I mean, outcome-wise, the U.S. ends up like neck and neck with Cuba, which is an absolute achievement for Cuba given the fucking blockade that they're under. But not a great showing for the U.S., which isn't under one and has unparalleled advantages in this regard. And like various Central American countries. Like, I mean, he's acting like these things are a fucking mystery, but the reality is, all of this stuff has actually been studied. It's just that he can't be bothered to read it because he's a fucking ignoramus.
Yeah, it's because it's so obfuscated. There's a lot of it's hard to figure out what's actually going on sometimes.
Yeah, no, it actually isn't hard to figure out what's actually going on, Destiny. It's just hard to figure it out if you are bound and determined never to open a book.
I think the biggest gripe about healthcare is the wild ways in which prices change. Depending on whether or not you have insurance, most medical bills make almost no sense.
Almost no sense? I mean, I would say, like, absolutely no sense. Yeah, I mean, like, the amount of markup on things, if you get a hospital bill for even fairly routine surgery, Actually, I mean that year's out of state tuition for, I think that was Florida State that he had up. Like, if you just go in hospital and have to spend a couple of nights there and you're self pay, which a significant number of people are, then the bill, and you've got to get, like, I don't know, knee surgery or some shit, then the bill is enough to get the whole fucking 4-year degree at that university. And a lot of that is just massive markup, which again they're allowed to do. They're just maximizing profit, and the entire way that this healthcare system is run is for profit.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds silly, but like when you start getting other stuff involved, everything just gets really complicated. Like I remember, I'm just leaning on my
This is such a wonderful thing when people use "it's complicated" as a justification for not engaging with the issue. Oh, I mean, people do that with Palestine a lot. They'll be like, "Oh, it's complicated." Well, okay, let's get into the complications. What are the complications? Let's talk about it. No, 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 it's complicated. So I'm not gonna take an interest in it. I'm just gonna, you know. I mean, it's the same bullshit. Like, there's nothing. Yeah, there are a lot of weeds you can get into looking at how the healthcare system works, but the basics are not that hard. It is operated for profit by companies that have very little incentive to act in the interest of patients. In the case of insurance companies, their entire incentive is to harm patients. Their business model is to screw patients over. They don't make money providing healthcare; they make money denying healthcare, which is why the health insurance industry, has a single-digit approval rating in this country. Nobody likes them.
thing. These are things that I knew doing orders at the casino, and then these are things that I knew working as a carpet cleaner. So take everything I say as a grain of salt.
Wow, just a grain? Well, I mean, it's not like his real area of expertise, which is international criminal law.
For the casino, when we were ordering supplies, when we were scheduling employees, it was really, really, really important to make sure that when we were scheduling, that we were scheduling about the same amount of employment costs.
Hello,
because some
Joe K.
employees were
Welcome
different
back.
wages, month to month to month. Because when the casino went to look at like who they wanted to cut budget from or whatever, if you're showing that
What
like,
the
oh
fuck
look,
does this have to do with anything?
can operate, at 80% of our original costs, then they'll start to, if they don't cut your budget, at the very least, if you go back to what you were doing before, they'll look at you. It's like, well, hold on, you were operating, here at XYZ cost or X cost a month. Now you're going back up to this. Like, what?
Like, God, this guy's, first of all, this guy's hair is really annoying me. And second of all, what the hell does this have to do with anything? I mean, he's decided to just talk about something he definitely knows about and hopes nobody notices.
Happened? Something break? That's kind of annoying. And then for the carpet cleaning stuff, I remember that when we would do, if we had a job
This is,
for
I mean, I can understand your confusion because I don't know what the fuck he's on about now. But this is his argument against have public health care free at the free at the point of use, which amounts to, well, it's complicated and I don't understand the cost structure, and also maybe people would spend all their time going to the doctor if doctors didn't have a huge cover charge, because everybody just loves going to the doctor that much. I mean, and it's just really remarkable how little effort he has put into understanding any of this. It's all, oh, well, I heard a right wing talking point someplace, and I guess we're going to just go with that. And other than that, I guess it's real complicated, isn't it? Uh, but, yeah.
water damage.
And of course, his rich ass doesn't care.
Okay. Let's say that we're doing a water damage job. Okay. If we do water damage, we're going into your basement. We're going to measure the carpet with
What the fuck does this have to do with healthcare?
A moisture sensor. We're going to walk around, and if there's wet carpet, we're going to pull the carpet back. We're going to cut out the padding, replace it.
This is about healthcare. Like, okay, so he's cutting the carpet back.
Put the carpet back, and we'll probably leave like one dehumidifier, and maybe a fan or two
Ooh, wow, he's got technical terms.
blowing in that basement. Okay. We'll also go around and we'll measure the baseboards. We might pop off the trim and maybe cut drywall if we feel like there's a lot of moisture back there, okay? That's what we're doing if you're paying cash. If it's an insurance job, oh boy, if it's an insurance job, we're bringing a separate truck. You're getting at least 4 fans in that basement, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is complication in that. Fundamentally, because but the key would simply be that you would have to just create some sort of public body that was fully funded, and that it would then start covering healthcare, and at the same time you would have some sort of using state bargaining power to bargain down the costs of the really expensive shit, like the ridiculous profits that pharmaceuticals get paid off of drugs that largely were developed in the public sector at no expense to them. It isn't. Yeah, there are aspects of it that would be complicated, and it depends on exactly which model you would do, but it's not insurmountable. Like, they treat it as if it's this completely impossible thing, but like, we've done versions of this. Like when Medicaid came in, when Medicare and Medicaid happened, LBJ had those running very quickly, in large part because he figured he would get reelected on the strength of them. Whereas Joe, and that it would distract from the fact that he was doing genocide in Indochina. Whereas Joe Biden's idea is that having his sycophants run around telling people who are struggling to survive that they don't realize how good they've got it is what's going to distract him from the genocide he's committing in Palestine and get him reelected. But
you're getting the full Nebraska vortex of fans. You're getting 2 DHUs per room, okay? For drywall, we're cutting at least a foot above any detected moisture.
This is like sort of the opposite of how health insurance works, though, because health insurance is not trying to get you everything. In fact, if your doctor, the way health insurance works is your doctor comes up with a plan, says, here's what my patient needs. And the insurance company says, yeah, well, fuck you. Your patient's not getting that, but here's what we'll do.
Taking all of that out. We're probably going to take out the, if you've got insulation, we'll bring in special people with more insulation. We're pulling all of that out. We're going to pull the full padding on the floor. We might replace the carpet if you really want. We might seal the floor. There's so much more, but it's because it's an insurance job. If we do a cash job for water damage, you might be able to do this for like $1,500. If it's an insurance job, we're trying to build at least $5,000 to $10,000, and you can do it too.
Yeah, again, this is not how individual health insurance works. This is not how it works when you're a patient. Now, hospitals, on the other hand, hospitals will tack all sorts of bullshit on. Mostly they just mark things up absurdly. So, like, if they give you an aspirin that probably cost less than 50 cents for them to buy wholesale, probably something more like half a cent or something like that, and they'll put that down for $350 or something like that. But that's not. It isn't like when you have an insurance job, when you have insurance as a patient, that you're going to get more. If anything, you're going to get. If you're lucky, you'll get the same thing that you would get if you were paying cash. Except that you couldn't pay cash because it's fucking expensive.
I don't know if it works the same way like in the hospital world, but...
Yeah, well, maybe, here's a weird thing, Destiny. Let me just suggest this. Let me just throw this out there, okay? Maybe the world of carpet cleaning and the world of healthcare are not as similar as you think. Maybe it's a very different world out there from the one you come from.
Damn, when insurance companies get involved, we are charging out the... for everything, and there's no discounts, no customer benefit, none of that shit. So yeah, what was the determination from immigration research? It's the number 1 topic for voters. You seem to be finished with it in 2 days. What was the conclusion? Immigration research.
It isn't the number 1 topic for voters, it should be noted.
Which is really, really, really boring because the conclusion seems really, really, really simple, but there's too much political gridlock. And it seems like right now the biggest issue with immigration has to do with the asylum process. But
okay. And now, the asylum process is an issue in the U.S. because the U.S. does not respect the Geneva Convention on the Legal Status of Refugees. It does not have maintain minimum standards for like fair processes and things like that, and they treat refugees like shit. And really, you don't really have a whole lot of a chance of getting recognized as a refugee unless you're coming from someplace the U.S. really doesn't like. If you're fleeing from a regime the U.S. is bankrolling, there's a good chance they'll throw you right back, no matter how dangerous it would be for you. But somehow I feel like that's not going to be the issue he sees. And I will be absolutely shocked if he actually knows anything about how the asylum process works. Because nobody in the U.S. really, other than people who are subject to immigration law in the U.S., nobody has an idea. Nobody has the first clue what an absolute Kafka-esque labyrinth of shit that is.
I mean, Democrats tried to push a big bill that would have dramatically changed the.
Yeah, insurance companies have all the incentive in the world because the thing is, the only reason insurance companies are getting any money is because they're the only game in town. If people could get all the health care they needed when they needed it, and without ever having to get an insurance company involved because it was just publicly funded, insurance companies would be dead in the water. Because who the fuck's gonna go to a fucking HMO and pay them $500 a month with a $10,000 annual deductible, 20,000 out of network, if you can just go to the doctor and it doesn't matter if you don't have a dime. Yeah, I mean, the entire insurance industry depends on having a monopoly on healthcare.
Asylum process, and the Republicans blocked it because Donald Trump told them that we need to keep the border open so that we can fight over this as an election.
Except the border isn't open. Anyone who tells you the border is open is just fucking lying. The border is massively militarized. The southern border is the deadliest peacetime border in the entire world because of how militarized it is, because how it is designed so that all the safe crossing points are closed off by the wall, and then Trump's wall in addition to the wall that already existed. Then you have Border Patrol, and those motherfuckers have no accountability. They can do whatever they want, then nobody really looks into it. Every once in a while, they find a mass grave in the border zone, and it's a very minor news item, and then nothing more, and then nobody talks about it, and there's never an investigation, and nobody asks, why the fuck are there mass graves in the border zone? What the fuck is the Border Patrol getting up to down there? Yeah, it would not surprise me if French-speaking Cajuns get deported sometimes, because, like, U.S. citizens have ended up in the concentration camps because they just didn't have their papers on them at the time. And then the way the immigration concentration camp system works, you basically disappear. You don't necessarily have a chance to get in touch with anyone to let them know where they are. You don't necessarily have any way, like, people, you're just off the map. And that can go on for months. And so, like, sometimes you will have people with, born U.S. citizens even, who are just stuck in these camps, starving and just being surrounded by all sorts of disease because they're totally unsanitary and massively overcrowded. And yeah, well, it's not as weird when you realize that the reason that migrant labor is cheap is that this immigration system exists. The whole point of this immigration system is to keep immigrant labor cheap, because it means that there is constantly a sword of Damocles hanging over non-citizen workers anytime they try to, like, demand their just basic labor rights under the National Labor Relations Act or something like that. Like, employers are allowed to call in a raid. That's a program Bill Clinton introduced. So, like, what they do is, when you have all these migrant workers And they're all getting paid way below the minimum wage, and nobody is trying to enforce their labor rights. So they decide to try to form a union. The employer hears about it, so they ring ICE. ICE comes in and deports the lot of them. No penalty for the employer. The employer is on the, in the good books because they called it in. They've done the right thing, and it just happened to avoid them having to deal with a union drive. Like, I mean, if you wanted to eliminate any advantage to exploiting migrant labor, the first thing you would do is get rid of all immigration restrictions, and the second thing you do is simply actually enforce labor laws, enforce them all. Because I mean, it's ridiculous how low these people are getting paid, and they're not. I mean, there's this idea that you hear that is like underlying in a lot of the talk about like immigration and labor and stuff like that, where the assumption seems to be that migrant workers are somehow inherently cheaper or something like that. They just don't want as much money, and it's like, no, their cost of living, if anything, is greater. Because in addition to like paying the fucking rent and eating and all that stuff, a lot of them are sending money back home. So actually, if anything, they need more money than a citizen whose family is right there in the same town as them. But because you have these immigration restrictions and you create a situation that makes all employment is inherently extremely precarious and dangerous if you are a non-citizen, because your legal right to stay in the country, whether, I mean, if you even have legal status in the country, will be dependent on staying in your employer's good graces. The whole thing is designed to terrify migrant workers and make them extremely cheap and disposable.
Issue. None of what I just said is controversial, and that is exactly what happened. So, as unbelievable and as
well, I mean, the bit where you claim that the borders are open is not just controversial; it's just wrong. That's just a fucking lie.
That's basically, yeah.
Like, motherfuckers in this country don't know what open borders even are. If you want to actually experience an open border, go between Germany and Austria. There's no border control. There's no passport control. You could miss the fact that you've moved countries, because apart from everything else, it doesn't even change languages. Or, from France to Germany or something like that. I mean, now that's not to say that the external borders of the EU, I mean, those are extremely deadly and militarized, and it is fucking evil what they're doing. Fortress Europe it's called. And tens of thousands of people have been drowned in the Mediterranean, refugees, by the European Border Agency Frontex. But I mean, the idea that the U.S. has the U.S. doesn't have a single open border. Okay, there's one exception to that. The Akwesasne Reserve that straddles the border between New York and Quebec. That is one place. That is possibly the one place in North America where you can cross an international border without passport control or anything, but you can't get anywhere from there. I mean, not at least on the Canadian side, because you end up in all these islands and things. Hello, Hail Satine. So we've got all sorts of interesting stuff. We just watched Destiny explain that talk about cleaning carpets to explain why he's against free healthcare. But we've got all sorts of things. We've got CPI at the World Youth Festival. That's some Caleb Maupin bullshit. We've got Caleb Maupin again. The Muppet went to the Libertarian Party convention because he's not a reactionary at all, you see. He's a real communist, which is why he's going to the Libertarian Party convention. We've got Ayn Rand Center is having a very rational, normal take on the South African elections. South Africa votes. Which Hamas support will prevail? We've got Pim Tool. Well, that definitely. We've got Pim Tool. Biden campaign revels in Trump guilty verdict, clouds and calls him a felon. AOC and then AOC rails against the toxic online left. I mean, we got some options. What's everyone think? I've never looked at this Ayn Rand Center UK thing, but it keeps showing up in my recommendations, and it looks like some hardcore reactionary Zionist bullshit. I've been following the South African elections, and they're still not done counting the votes. The last I saw, it's still, I mean, they're most of the way done. Oh, yeah, definitely. Caleb should not be around youths. But the ANC are still the largest party. Oh, hey, we've got spam. I'm moving up in the world. If let me see, ban budding the rally. Like, I just love this idea where these spam bots will offer to promote your channel or whatever. Like, if your only way of promoting yourself is to spam my chat, then I don't think that you're actually all that good at promotion. But okay, let's check this out. This is the Ayn Rand Center, UK. Never looked at one of these before, so we're all going to see it for the first time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the reality show. Today I have Mark and Richard and Chris, returning guest.
Okay, who are these people? Chris Hatting. A South African politician. Member of the Democratic Alliance. Okay. He's a candidate in this election. And actually, last I checked, the Democratic Alliance were the number 2 party. The Democratic Alliance, I hadn't been familiar with them, so I decided to check them out since they were the number 2 party in the election so far. And see, they started out as this white liberal anti-apartheid party during apartheid, and they wanted to change apartheid from within. So they formed, in order to do this, so they could contest elections in the apartheid parliament, they formed an all-white party. So it was a bunch of, like, all-white liberals amongst themselves trying to solve apartheid from within. So
Back with us today, and we're discussing the results of the South African elections, which the results have been trickling in over the last few days, and we have a bit of a picture, I think, of...
Let me just check what the election results are looking like now. IEC election results 2004. Results dashboard. Okay, 96.96% complete. Let's see what we've got. ANC on 40.16. The Democratic Alliance, that's this guy in the top right's party, is 21.70. And then MK, which I believe is Umkhonto we Sizwe, which is named after the former armed wing of the African National Congress. Then how's the EFF doing? That's the Economic Freedom Fighters. Let's see, they're on 9%. So, ANC, yeah. I mean, the ANC have lost their outright majority in any case. You can check this out here. I'll drop the link in chat.
of what the outcome is going to be, and we're going to discuss that just a little bit. So for anyone who hasn't been following, these are often being described as probably the most significant elections since the 90s and the end of apartheid. The ANC, which has been in power for about 30 years now, is thought to perhaps they're going to lose their majority, which is quite a big thing, and they're possibly going to have to form a coalition.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, looking at the results, the latest results, it looks like they would have to form some kind of a coalition.
All this kind of stuff. We're going to get into those and discuss those just a little bit. So Chris, why don't you just...
And one question, of course, is, will the EFF, whose whole thing is, I mean, they won a massive program of nationalizations and economic decolonization, essentially. It's run... Sorry. It's led by Julius Malema, a former ANC politician. And the question is, would they, would they want to be in a coalition with the ANC, just to get into government? Or would they want to, would they refuse to do so, because they would not be able to do the things that people are voting for them to do if they end up in a coalition with the ANC?
Give people some details, tell them how it's been going and what you think about it.
And I mean, maybe Malema. Does Malema... Okay. Nothing I'm finding that says Malema has said one way or another whether he'd be open to a coalition.
Thanks very much, and thank you for having me back. Always good to get to chat with you guys. So,
now, you can also get a little bit of the philosophy of the Democratic Alliance by the fact that this guy is on the Ayn Rand Center UK's fucking live stream.
for Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of the ANC and the president of the country, in the 1990s, he was one of the key figures negotiating on the new constitution with various parties and interest groups. Now it looks like he's going to be the first ANC president to have to lead the party into a performance below 50% for the first time in a national and provincial election cycle. So at the moment, with just around 75% of the votes counted, we're looking at the ANC coming in around 40%.
Yeah, I mean, it is really kind of telling that the Ayn Rand Center is doing this thing about South Africa, and it's just all white dudes. And that'll make DA old timers feel at home, I guess.
Nationally. That's from a high point in 2004 of 69%, and in 2019 when they obtained 57%. So a massive decline for the ANC across the board. They're still the biggest political party in South Africa, but I think...
skip ahead a little bit and see what else they talk about.
And then the Democratic Alliance, you said kind of conservative, I think economically kind of liberal, more leaning towards free markets. Right.
Yeah, more classically liberal, you sort of non-racialism. More in that direction. And they...
Yeah, so basically even more selling off of South Africa's wealth to foreign corporations.
In 2019, they suffered one of their worst results. So they had also an internal crisis at that point, questions around, do you lean more into quote unquote representation and transformation, or where should you do your messaging kind of thing? I think in a country as diverse as South Africa in terms of cultures, languages...
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot more diverse than this panel.
For the DA to come in at the moment between 22 and 25% as the second biggest political party, I think is a testament to the work that they've done.
Actually, they're on 20%, according to the latest, but that, I mean, when this is from a few days ago, let me see when. No, this was streamed 11 hours ago. Well, it's 20% now, with 96.96% of the votes cast.
Mark and Richard?
Yeah, as Chris pointed out, it's quite a momentous event. We've seen the ANC, which is in power since the Nelson Mandela Day in 2004, this kind of loss of votes is just more than apathy. I mean, we probably should point out that at this point, the results are about 75% and about
Yeah, okay.
58% turnout. So lots of people chose not to turn up. Would be interested to hear from Chris what you think.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to guess that South Africa does not buck the trend. Well, the guy on the left sounds German to me. The top left. I haven't heard Silent Bob there talk. Yet. The top right is South African. Very clearly, Anglo-South African accent there. But I would imagine part of the difficulty, I mean, most likely the tendency is for voting to be concentrated amongst people who are economically better off, because those are the people who usually have more of a stake in the questions that are actually up for political debate, which is part of the reason that electoral left parties often do very badly, because they're trying to engage people who already often have a fairly sophisticated degree of cynicism about the likelihood of their interests actually being represented within the existing system.
Thinks the reasons are, but also I think for the first time in individual what are they called, people with no affiliation to party were allowed to be elected, to be in this election, and the voting, the ballot itself included 52 slots. If you saw them, it's quite hilarious how many choices you have in a single ballot, which is fairly unusual as well. And probably this fragmentation has helped chipping away some of the votes that the ANC used to get. But again, because of Zuma creating this new party, this party was never tested at the election before, which...
the Zuma's party is MK, Mkhonto we Sizwe.
About pull peddling, and you want to be on the list simply to increase your pull, either when it comes to trading off in coalitions or just to raise your profile when it...
Oh, very posh English accent on that one.
It comes to other,
Okay, I have to say, I'm finding this less than scintillating, so I think we might move on to something else.
And without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Okay, well, this is supposed to be Caleb Muppet over at the Libertarian Party convention.
We just got to the Libertarian Party's national convention.
Like a completely normal place for a very real communist to be.
Look at that. Here at the Washington Hilltop. What do you think, Peter?
This is pretty swell.
Yeah, really, very swell. Very swell. They're just completely normal people.
So far, it's been pretty awesome. Met a lot of great libertarians. Trying to find a home here, seeing if there's a place in this party for me. If a guy like myself who's kind of like a libertarian socialist of sorts, who believes...
Yeah, no, there's no fucking place in there for you.
...in central planning, that it can work, who believes that Medicare...
Also, I mean, he doesn't know what libertarian socialism is. That is a very... Libertarian socialism is literally anarchism.
For all is a human right. Where do we have a home here? Do we have a place here?
No, you don't. Like, there's literally no reason to believe you would have one.
And there are some people in the old guard who don't like me, don't like my ideology. They still say that stupid stuff like, you want to kill us. Like, no, we don't.
I mean, like, literally, people in the Libertarian Party actually say they want to kill people who want to have, like, national health care.
I got a lot of friends, you'll meet them. My good friend Caleb will be by. We don't
Oh, wow. Yeah, dodgy fuck.
want to kill you. We just want to find a way we can come together to fight back against this machine.
Hi,
Yeah, fight against this machine. They're like,
everybody. My name's Nick, and I am a libertarian because I am pro-peace.
yeah, because if there's one thing that's really great for peace, it's letting capitalists do whatever the hell they want.
I am pro-whistleblower. That is, people like...
Yeah, that's obviously a thing that libertarianism is great for, because if there's one system that really protects people who blow the whistle on the shit capitalists are getting up to, it's a system that says capitalists get to have full control over the society. Now, I mean, literally, the term libertarianism, I mean, these right-wingers actually bragged about having appropriated the term back in the 1950s. Before that, traditionally, the term libertarian meant anarcho-communism.
Julian Assange, Edward Snowden, the Boeing whistleblowers.
Julian Assange.
Yeah, wait. So the idea is that if you in a party whose ideology is that companies should be totally deregulated, like Boeing, that you're siding with those whistleblowers by saying that there should be no safety standards.
To be freed, being locked up for heinous reasons. He has released information that has led to the discovery of atrocities in the Middle East.
What's with this pubic beard on this dude, though?
And corruption all over the world. If we can't have good, actual information like that, there's no reason we should have any free speech in the first place.
Free speech is under attack. He did nothing wrong. Reporting shouldn't be a crime.
Free Assange.
Then why the hell do you have a Trump hat on? Trump actually is the one who... Trump's administration fucking charged Assange. The whole proceeding to extradite Assange was started by fucking Trump. Well, first of all, it is absolutely absurd that he's being extradited in the first place, because the way that extradition is supposed to work is that it applies to what are called non-political offenses. Like, Julian Assange, like, to the extent that you can tax some kind of fucking, you can try to criminalize what Assange actually is being extradited for, which is journalism. It is literally just journalism. It would necessarily have to be a political offense. And so it should not be an extraditable offense. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. And I have to say, I mean, a lot of people acted like it was really absurd to suggest that the real point of everything to do with Sweden was actually to get him extradited to the U.S. But, you know, and they say, oh, that's never going to happen. That's, you know, and years into this, obviously that was bullshit. Assange himself is a prick. He's fash. The WikiLeaks party in Australia had a preference deal with the neo-Nazi party there. He's a piece of shit whose organization has done some very important stuff. And the reason that he's being targeted is because of actually just doing journalism. He's not being targeted for being a piece of shit. He's being targeted for like doing journalism. But I mean, a motherfucker was saying free Assange and he's got a Trump hat on. Do you know who Trump is? He's the guy who started the extradition proceedings, for fuck's sake.
Free Assange.
So your button says abolish the FBI, abolish the CIA. Tell me about that.
Well, I just think we need less federal government and less federal agencies.
They're driving for World War III. They're attacking our civil liberties. They're allowing the United States to crumble economically. They're you know.
Well, what exactly? I mean, the thing is, what is the United States there? There's this idea that there is the economy, and it is this one monolithic thing, and you can say it's good or bad. What's this pasta to go logo on here, by the way? The hell's that? But is Caleb Maupin brought to us by Pasta to Go. But anyway, I mean, for some people, the economy's wonderful.
January 6th, they should all be free. Blanket amnesty.
Once again, it's interesting. Not a word about Cop City. The only political prisoners, the only people he will call political prisoners, are the neo-Nazis who tried to occupy Congress with the aid of the DC Metro Police and the Capitol Police. A lot of them literal cops.
That happened. Sure, a lot of them may have done things they shouldn't have done or whatever, but when we know the government set that up, at that point there should be a blanket amnesty for all January 6th people.
So your buttons say abolish NATO and abolish the UN. Tell me about that.
Oh, and he's got one, the Mises Institute. The really fucked up fake-ass far-right economics think. Wow.
Well, both NATO and the UN work for the military-industrial complex. They're both about spreading wars. They were established and they lie and say that it's about keeping peace, but have we seen peace?
Also, I mean, who controls the UN, though? Yeah, the UN, I mean, the U.S. has actually been in all sorts of conflict with all sorts of major UN agencies for decades. Like, the U.S. hates UNESCO, for example. The U.S. has been totally isolated in the General Assembly. Like, I mean, the bits of the UN that actually have any enforcement power largely are just controlled by the U.S.
There's not been a year of my life where the United States has not been at war.
I agree with the libertarians. Our freedoms are being taken away, right?
Well, yes, but the thing is, like, I mean, this is the thing about him. His entire fucking worldview, his entire presentation, he doesn't stand for the same thing from one audience to the next. He is just so slippery on this. So, you notice he likes to pretend to be a communist a lot of the time, but he's not using that word at all right now.
I mean, the government is tapping our phones and listening to reading our emails and violating our freedoms left and right. You know, they had stop and frisk in New York City. That was a gun control policy. Yeah, right. Now they have these no-knock raids.
Not really. It was a racist policy. Maybe they tried to justify it with gun control, but it wasn't anything to do with that.
And all of that.
No kids in cages. They have abolished the NIAID, which you know a lot about, all these CIA covert wars. They even had a
NIAID? I've heard of USAID. What the hell? Okay. Oh, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He wants to abolish the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases. That's great.
A pin that said, no human is illegal. So there are leftist...
Yeah. I like how he says he's seen these pins in places. We haven't seen them on camera, but we're taking his word for it. We're trusting him. Like, the pins we've seen have been a bit dodgy.
There's libertarians here, and it's kind of awesome meeting there, and this thing is just growing over here. This is the third party.
What are the disagreements within the Libertarian Party? Because I know there's a lot of internal strife and stuff. What's going on?
Okay, who is this guy? He's familiar to me, and I believe his big thing is that he's anti-Semitic. If he is, well, I think he is. They distributed 1,000 copies of a pamphlet entitled "Do You Believe in Growth? Why Russia and China Keep Rising While U.S. Society Stifles Innovation." Like, so they just, completely rewrite their ideology depending on who they're trying to grift to. Oh, I love hummingbirds.
It's whether to embrace Donald Trump or not. Some lots of people don't like Donald Trump. Fine. Some people like Donald Trump. That's fine.
I wouldn't say that's fine. I mean, those people tend to be dodgy as hell.
It's on a high level. It's a strategic difference. Lots of people say that Donald Trump, his brand is eventually it's going to crash and burn. And where does that leave the Libertarian Party?
So we're.
Yeah, so it's all about whose coattails to ride, which is great because Caleb is here trying to ride their coattails, and they're trying to ride Donald Trump's coattails, and all of them suck.
In the hall where Donald Trump is going to be speaking in a few minutes, who's going to give his speech in a few minutes.
Yeah, again, normal place for a communist to be. He's totally a real communist. He's not at all a cardboard cutout that has a ventriloquist attached.
So, a big crowd of people here. Not all of them Trump supporters, I'll tell you that much. It's going to be interesting to see how the crowd reacts to Trump.
Trump has done a lot for the United States. I think he's probably the best president.
Wow, this is a very white crowd. I mean, I'm not surprised. It is the Libertarian Party, but
we've had, in my opinion, since Ronald Reagan.
Do you think he can stop World War III?
I think he could stop World War III. And I think when he was in there, I mean, you saw other countries respect the United States.
No, they didn't actually. I mean, they do. I mean, they don't in general, but
now the United States is the laughingstock.
Angela McArdle, chair of the Libertarian National Convention.
Oh God. Okay, so Trump. He got convicted in New York on 34 counts. That does not mean that he can't actually stand for president. There's no law against somebody with convictions getting elected president. Of course, it doesn't mean anything in the sense that this is not suddenly a signal that former presidents are going to be prosecuted for their crimes. Like, I mean, George W. Because if that were true, if that were what this was, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Joe fucking Biden would be very nervous right now. But no, they're all eating popcorn. They're fine with this. I mean, and of course, there's still the question of sentencing. He might still get off with like house arrest or some bullshit.
What a beautiful crowd.
I haven't seen any evidence of this either.
Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. You know, I also invited
Well, it was the only night for the convention, so.
Joe Biden, and he did not attend. We have an incredible opportunity tonight, and I'm really grateful for it. Never in the history of the Libertarian Party has a former president and front-runner candidate for the presidency come to speak specifically to our concerns.
Yeah, that should be interesting. But, I mean, like, is this all this is going to be? Do we get more Caleb Muppet, or are we just going to watch the Trump speech?
Thank you all for making history with us. I want to continue this trend. So let's work towards that. I really appreciate you all. And without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Okay, we're going to see some incoherence here. What are they chanting? Did anyone make that out? Pork. Somebody's got a placard that says pork. Of course they've got a placard. Save some pigs? Yeah, maybe.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Angela, for that introduction.
Oh,
and
well, say something? Are they checking he's alive? Obviously, the point of him getting up on the fucking podium is that he's gonna say something. Are they unfamiliar with the concept of a speech?
I am truly honored to be invited here tonight as the first president in American history to address the Libertarian National Convention. We believe that the job of the United States military is not to wage endless regime change wars around.
Well, I mean, except you did that.
The globe, senseless war. Biden's radical left Democrat Party is a fascist movement that...
Well, I mean, radical left Democrat Party. Right. And...
wants to throw you in jail if you post a meme they don't like. They want to throw you in jail if you do something that isn't quite to their liking. And I am proud to be the only president in 70 years who started no new wars.
Well, that's not actually impressive when you consider that he continued all of the old ones.
I took on the military-industrial complex.
No, he fucking didn't.
I broke the stranglehold on neocons and warmongers on the Republican Party.
No, he didn't. Like, none of this is true. He actually... Let's just remember that before Trump, the mainstream view was that sending military aid, sending actual weapons to Ukraine, was unnecessarily provocative. And so, like, Obama refused to do that, for example. Trump did that. Trump actually massively increased the level of confrontation with Russia, which is inconvenient to a lot of liberals who like to have this narrative that he's a Russian agent and all this bullshit. Yeah, he says what he knows people want to hear, and I noticed this is very heavily edited. You wonder what the rest of it was, but I'm not actually that interested in knowing.
And instead of war, I made peace in the Middle East something...
No, you fucking didn't. Where's the peace in the Middle East, motherfucker?
Nobody thought was possible.
Yeah, the Middle East is so fucking peaceful right now. Thank you, Donald.
And dealt with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, where a nuclear war was guaranteed to start.
No, it wasn't. And this is such bullshit. Because what actually was going on, I mean, it's particularly ridiculous to say that a nuclear war was guaranteed to start there, is what happened. And Caleb Muppet, who pretends to be an anti-imperialist, always loves to just completely misrepresent this. Because the reality is that after the U.S. had basically not shown any interest in any kind of normalization relationship between North and South in Korea, because, of course, anything like that potentially spells the death knell for the U.S.'s entire excuse to occupy South Korea. So, now, they finally, the Northern and Southern leadership finally decided, fuck all this, we're just going to have bilateral talks, and, you know, if the Yanks aren't interested in joining us, then we'll do it without them. And it was actually very promising. It was a very exciting moment in both the South and the North, and that was actually freaking out the U.S. And if you read the papers at the time, you'll find that a lot of people were freaking out about this because, like, Korea was just leaving the U.S. completely out of a discussion about what's supposed to happen in Korea when, you know, why should that be left to Koreans and stuff? And said, you know, the U.S. government needs to get in there and shut this thing down. And that's what the U.S. did. That is what Trump did. That was, his brief was to fuck the thing up. And so he started demanding preconditions for these talks that were definite non-starters, like complete disarmament for the DPRK. Like, They're just going to leave themselves completely open to U.S. attack. And it destroyed what was a potentially very promising series of talks between the ROK and the DPRK. Like, Trump was never trying to peacefully reunify the Korean Peninsula. That is just an absolute lie.
In a very short period of time, if Hillary Clinton became president, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, so we quit spending hundreds of billions of dollars to fight other people's wars, and so that we start immediately saving thousands and thousands of lives. And I am committed to restoring peace and restoring stability.
Restoring peace and civility, yeah, right.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht.
Who the hell is that?
To a sentence of time served.
Ross is a campaign to pardon Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht is serving, I believe, 2 consecutive life sentences for creating a website where people happen to sell drugs and guns and things like that. But frankly, given the way that Facebook is treated or anything like that, wouldn't Zuckerberg be in prison for the same damn thing? Anyway, the campaign to free Ross Ulbricht is about
Okay, so this is who the hell he is.
that he created a website. What people chose to do with that website is their own business, and he should not have been in prison for it. FreeRoss.org, check it out.
Right, and economic growth.
Oh, here we go. This is their bullshit. Very LaRouchian. This obsession with growth is very much a LaRouche thing.
Is what it means to be human, right? We were hunter-gatherers in the woods, and now just
He still doesn't know what growth means in the economic context. He still thinks that growth... I mean, he still uses, he talks about degrowth, and he has never once accurately defined the concept of growth in that. So now he's talking about, like, he thinks that growth just means, like, personal growth?
7,000-8,000 years later, we've invented space travel and iPhones, and we've done amazing
you
things.
didn't invent any of that shit.
And we, at this point, the problem is not growth, as some people would say. The problem is that we have a system where abundance creates poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah, except growth is a necessary concomitant of the system. We do not need constant increases in the volume of economic transactions. That is just a thing that capitalists need.
Poverty is created by abundance. People are homeless because there's too many houses. People are hungry because there's too much food. Self-driving cars should be a great thing. In a rational society, would be great if no one ever had to drive. That human labor was no longer necessary.
Well, why not fucking public transport, for example?
But in our system, that would lead to mass unemployment, etc. This is not rational. We need to do what they've done in China and in Nicaragua and other countries, rationally organize the economy so small businesses can flourish, so that working people can have economic
this is so just petty bourgeois shit.
security, so people can start their own enterprises,
Yeah, wow, he's so fucking communist. They want to start their own enterprises and shit. Yeah, you can exploit your own proletarians.
I've heard a lot of libertarians who think China is good, who think Russia is good. Like, is that a common view?
Yes, it's like these are not our enemies. Maybe it's governments are the enemy and oppression is the enemy, and it's.
Well, unless oppression is done by capitalists, in which case it's cool.
It is very much individuals unite.
What do you think of high-speed railway?
Oh, I love it. I love high-speed railway. I would love to ride a high-speed rail from LA to Las Vegas.
Very good.
Like, I mean, this is the thing. Has did this once too. Is like a communist goes to a MAGA rally. Let's see how they react. And what he did was just found the most, like, anodyne shit ever. And never actually said anything that would remotely challenge anyone. And then said, see, they all love communism. And it's like...
Yeah. All right.
Be good for our economy, right?
Yeah, amen.
You like fusion energy?
Yeah, I love it as well. I've dipped my hand in the cooling tower reactor of 3 Mile Island.
Wow, that shows wonderful judgment. Why the hell did you do that?
It's interesting because, years ago I wrote an article really criticizing libertarians. And I said, how can libertarians like Russia and China so much when both those countries have a very state-run economy? And
well, yeah, it's because they have a fucking garbage ideology that is a total moving target because they're total opportunists. And gradually, Caleb realized that they have a garbage ideology and are total opportunists, so they are natural allies for him.
And I got a very astute response from a libertarian. And they said, well, Caleb, yes,
fair.
Russia, their economy is centered around state-controlled oil and gas. China has 5-year plans and state-run industries. But you have to admit...
5-year plans do not make socialism, incidentally. Lots of capitalist states, including China, have 5-year plans.
Both Russia and China have a way bigger middle class and way more small business owners than America does. And they treat their middle class and their small business owners way better than America does. And I thought that's actually a really good point.
All right, so we're out of all the pamphlets we have. We got the last stack of them in the car. It's been going really, really well.
Wait, are you out of the pamphlets you have, or do you have the last stack in the car? Yeah. Yeah, well, opportunism is the bread and butter of all kinds of grifters, too. Like, this prick here, he, pretends to be a communist. Except he actually is except he thinks that fascism is communism. And so, naturally, any place where the far right is present, he wants to be, because those are the people he really wants to work with.
A lot of sympathy. What did you guys hear?
Really great things. People are very interested. I thought people were really enthusiastic about this idea that growth is good, that we need.
Wow, I mean, you got them with a foundational postulate of capitalist ideology that literally goes completely unchallenged in the educational system, in the media, pretty much everywhere. Wow, you told them you think growth is good. Literally, find somebody in the mainstream who doesn't.
You need to stop spending so much damn money fueling this forever war that rages all across the world.
The response to the leaflets and the pamphlets has been phenomenal. I have never talked to so many people who support Julian Assange, who want to end the wars.
If the response to your pamphlets of your so-called communist organization at the Libertarian Party convention has been phenomenal, you fucked up.
This is the place to be.
Yeah. Actually, that's one indication. That's one. They're pretty good. I mean, they're very interested. A lot of them like growth.
And then a lot of people that are libertarian, they see the government as a tool of the big monopolies to crush small business owners, right?
Well, no, I mean, they see it as supposedly also crushing big business owners. Their whole idea is that the government should only crush black people.
So I don't blame them for wanting to get the government off our backs, right? Unfortunately, I think that they're going to have to come to the conclusion that just kind of getting the government out is not going to cut it. They need a government that punches up, right?
Yeah, except they don't want to punch up.
And a government of action that will fight for working families. That's all.
Oh God, that he's been trying to make that tagline happen for years now, and it's not gotten any better.
Ultimately, what they're going to need, and they're going to have to learn that through the course of seeing, what's in store, and as the crisis intensifies. But
have you considered that maybe the class background of the fucking Libertarian Party is not made up of people who are actually doing all that badly in this situation?
I think the road out of the crisis we're in right now is an anti-monopoly coalition.
And I think that a lot of...
That is a failed idea that he stole off the 1970s Communist Party.
Leftists who believe in freedom of speech, freedom of press, and they're non-interventionists, they can find a home here in...
What do you mean leftists who are... What do you mean non-interventionist? I mean, okay, he must mean, U.S. not intervening in other countries' affairs. Because, I mean, non-interventionist could be economic non-intervention, which, i.e. no explicit state intervention in the economy, which is something like the Libertarian Party I would expect to be very excited about. But it's interesting that he says non-interventionist if he means it in terms of, internationally. Because that's very much, And that is still a very imperialist framing.
This party here, this is the third party, and this is the party of nuance, is at least what I say.
Oh wow, I've always wanted a party of nuance.
No, I think that these are the people that are worthy of a certain level of...
Well, they found the one black guy.
Hey, can we allow ourselves to give these folks that are working very, very diligently a little bit more grace, empathy, energy?
Make the hood great again?
And support. You know, I mean, like I want to run that back. You're an adult male that is grabbing the mic and telling a woman in a public space, like that's just low class shit. And I'm not saying...
Well, no, it's misogyny. It's the Libertarian Party. You're not expecting this?
It's like you can't think it, and I'm not saying you can't even say it, but I can say if you're gonna say that, it's art. You're putting your
like what? I mean, great in what way? Because it's not like there was some sort of golden age where the black community was not massively hyper exploited and impoverished. Like, what fucking great past is he hearkening back to with that?
Critique your art, and we're going to critique your art, and you may not like the outcome. So those people are kind of special to me.
What, the people who attack the misogynists in the Libertarian Party who attack the chairperson of the party because she's a woman are special to him?
It does kind of confound me that you consider yourself a communist, and I really want to try.
Yeah, it is confounding, but I can help break up the confusion. That's because he's not a communist. He just likes to pretend to be one.
To understand you, and I'm going to do my best not to put words in your mouth. I really want.
You'll find it's easier to make him make sense if you do, though. The words that come out of his mouth generally aren't very good.
Us to be an example for other people on how to have a productive dialogue, and I hope that if the communist revolution ever happens, you'll remember that, and I'll be one of the last ones up against the wall.
Sure.
But why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, and let's kind of like dig into just like kind of the basics.
Burger King. Well, I guess I'll start out by saying I don't think it's just opposing war that we agree on. I'm also against the vaccine mandates.
So he's against like public health. What? Yeah. What is this? What is this art exactly?
So against tech censorship. I'm against the surveillance that's going on and the violation of our civil liberties. I'm against the emerging police state. I'm against
why does he keep saying the emerging police state? The police state emerged already, motherfucker. We've been in the police state. The police state's been here for a very long time. What he's always calling it the emerging police state.
A lot of these trade deals that hurt American jobs, etc. So I think that there is quite a bit of overlap beyond simply the issue of anti-war. But I'm an Irish American. I'm from a small town in Ohio. Are you Irish as well?
I am.
Yeah.
Jesus, I mean, he's just such a fucking grifter.
Yeah. I years ago, I met an Irish cop in Cleveland, and he said that he heard an expression that when an Irishman gets off the boat in a new country, the first question he asks is, does this country have a government? And if the answer is yes, he says, well, I'm against it.
You heard this from a cop? That sounds like maybe he's already sort of self-refuting his saying.
So I think we're both true to our heritage in our own way.
Jesus. Okay, that was a nice little bit of sliminess.
And without further ado, I would like.
I mean, he's just such a slimy motherfucker. And it's becoming to be time to wrap up. Let me just thank everybody for joining in. I want to just remind you of this project that I'm working on as we wrap it up. I'm translating the work. What are you confused about, Joe? I'm translating the works of Inessa Armand, which have never been translated before into English. And so far I've done 15 of her essays. You can find them. I'm going to drop the link where you can find them all. And I'm trying to raise $8,500 to cover the cost of translating and editing them all, and also to keep my head above water, because this is right now my main source of income. Oh, they were talking about how his brand of grifty fake cult communism is entirely compatible with her bullshit economic ideology. That's what that was about. He was basically showing how he stands for nothing other than join my cult. Now, so I've raised about 25% of my goal, although I haven't had a lot of donations recently, and at the moment this is kind of my main source of income, because the translation industry the AI grift has been utterly disastrous for the translation industry. So any support for the project is very much appreciated. There's a link where you can donate if you would like to, and if you can't, you can't. But if you can and you'd like to, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I hope to see you there. Also, if you're not in the Discord already, let me drop that link again. This is where we can keep in touch in between streams, and if you have ideas for things that you'd like me to look at, you can also tell me about it there. Have a good night. Good night, good luck, and fuck Xanderhall.